Hi, my name's Drew and I'm going to be walking you through the Aliner family edition today. Starting right up front here, we have your ram jack. Easy up or down operation here, nothing too crazy with that. Coupler down here. As you see it, this is going to be the unlocked position. The locked position is going to be fully back. You're paying special attention that this secondary lock is there on the in the hole and fully engaged there. So to unlock it, we again then just lift that up and it's kind of spring loaded, it'll pop right off. So you'll start up 3 inches above the ball, back underneath of it, center yourself underneath the coupler, and then of course lower the jack down. Once fully seated on that ball, we are then going to go ahead and lock that back. We would then take your toe chain hooks here. We're going to cross those underneath the coupler up front here, and we'll hook those onto this toe chain hooks on the receiver. And then your emergency breakaway cable is going to ride right beside those, and a third connection point on those toe chains as well. So something similar to that. Once we have, of course, the weight on the vehicle or the weight on the ball here, we're going to go ahead and run this jack all the way up. This wheel does need to come off for travel. You do have a pin here. You would just lift that off and that wheel's going to come off. Of course, if we didn't have any weight on it, it'd drop right off the end of that jack there. Now coming right up here to the battery, we have a brand new Interstate Deep Cycle battery. One important thing to remember for this is going to be just good general battery maintenance. We have a water level underneath these vent panels that does need to be maintained with distilled water. So once every 90 days, go ahead and pull these vent panels up, refill with distilled water as necessary. Also coming off that battery is going to be your fuse here. You have an inline fuse there. That's going to be for your main 12-volt power. So if you're having any reliability issues on any of the appliances inside, you don't find anything wrong in the main fuse panel box, more than likely that's going to be your culprit there. Coming back here to the propane tanks, you have two 20-pound propane tanks. They are full for you today. You do have an automatic switchover regulator in between the two. Normal operation, we're going to be pointing towards the tank that we wish to draw off of. We're going to open up this valve. Now if we were to use this tank in its entirety, and we did also have this valve open, it's going to go ahead and automatically switch over to that tank. You do have a flow indicator here. Green means that you of course have propane flowing through the lines. If there is no propane flowing through the line, it's going to switch over to red, kind of pinwheel switch over to red there to indicate that you have no flow. Pulling these tanks off to get them filled or serviced, you're going to rotate this large wing nut off. You would then disconnect your pigtails here, kind of swing that regulator out of the way. Of course, rotate this T-bar and take them and have them filled. Putting it back together, you do just want to make sure that both tanks are in this indentation, and then go ahead and tighten it down. You don't have to go crazy with it, just to make sure they're not going to wiggle themselves loose and fall off. That is all covered by this propane bag here, propane cover here, and does have a zipper there on the back side to give you easy access to those valves and things like that. Directly behind that, we have this little porch light to light the way if you are servicing any of these battery or tanks. Switcher is going to be right there underneath the fixture, so pretty straightforward stuff there. We have stabilizer jacks on all four corners of the unit. These are going to be these guys here. There's a 3/4 inch drive nut on the end of each one. You do have a corresponding crank handle to use those. For these, you're going to come down, make contact with the pavement, come down, make contact with pavement, maybe a quarter turn more just to sure everything up. Same on the way up. There's no real need to go overly tight with these. We certainly aren't trying to level the camper with them or keep them, they're not going to work themselves down or anything like that. If we are doing leveling, or if we are leveling the camper, we're going to use the main tongue jack up front here. We're going to level front to back with that main jack. Leveling from left to right is going to be done with the tires and what's called a leveling kit, whether it be the stackable blocks variant or a ramp style. You're going to guesstimate the how off level you are, and then of course roll up onto either one of those. Coming around here to the side, we have a large storage compartment here, and you do have some amount of storage on this side, but mostly this space is for that outside kitchen that we're going to cover later. Careful with what you do choose to store in here. You do have some exposed water lines running through the compartment there, and we just want to make sure that we don't damage those again with any gear that we might stow in that compartment. We have a Zamp style solar plug there. This is designed for a portable solar panel, briefcase style panel, whichever you decide. Idea being that this is a direct connection to the battery. We essentially just plug and play here. A charge controller is directly on the panel, and then we take that panel and we put it out there into the sun. Big selling point for those is the ability to park your unit in the shade and have your panel in the sun. So that's why people like them portable solar panels. For you, again, it is just plug and play there on that connection. We have your drain outlet here. Now, no gray water holding tanks on any A-liners. So what they do is they essentially have that kitchen sink just coming down through the floor and rotating out. Now, this is not a standard fitting, but you can actually get a reducer for that and reduce that down to a garden hose size, allow you to route your wastewater away from the camper, keep everything nice and dry where you're at. We have your furnace vent here. Biggest thing with that is going to be protecting it from the intrusion of mud daubers and flying insects. And also, of course, it is an exhaust vent, so we do want to make sure we do let it exhaust. Tire pressure and lug nuts. Tire pressure is going to be 60 psi noted on this sticker here, as well as the sidewall of the tire. Now that's going to be your max tire pressure rating, and for any trailer tires we would like to run those at the max. That's where all the weight ratings and things were calculated with the camper, was with them at the max. Lug nuts, they need to be torqued down to 100 foot-pounds. They have been torqued down here in the shop, but the manufacturer recommends a retorque procedure. The first 10, 25, 50, and 100 miles of initial travel, we want to go ahead and retorque those down to 100 foot-pounds, or at least make sure they are maintaining that torque. Manufacturer further recommends that at the start of each trip thereon after, we do want to go ahead and torque those back down to 100 foot-pounds. So, power supply here. Now this is a 30 amp 110 volt connection. It does only plug into the camper one way, so you do have a L-shaped prong here, and it is only going to be accommodated one way. 1/8 inch turn to the right there locks it in. That's what I was struggling with. It was locked in. And then we do have this secondary collar here to screw down and lock it in further. Moving on, we have your outside shower here. Nothing too exciting there. You have access to hot and cold water. Very typical. You have a volume control here to help conserve the amount of hot water consumption, or essentially any water consumption with the unit. And then you do have a little guy here. He can clip onto there when being used. You know, something like that. I actually have it backwards here. Key goes on there like that, and something like that. Very cool addition. Everything does stow in this compartment, so that hose is going to wrap around the fixture, and you'll keep it under key there. 6-gallon capacity water heater here. Now this particular water heater runs is propane as the source with 12 volt ignition. Is again 6-gallon capacity. Manufacturer has two very important recommendations. Number one is going to be anytime the unit is going to be stored for more than 7 days, we want to go ahead and drain this water heater separate of the rest of the unit. Second recommendation is, of course, since when you start your trip, this is going to be empty, you do need to physically feed 6 gallons of water to the unit before lighting it. So we're going to talk about how to do each one of those things. When it comes to draining it, It is very important that we do depressurize it first. Of course, it's heating water up and that produces pressure. If we were to come here and release this drain plug without depressurizing it first, we create a very dangerous situation. It can actually spray, not only spray that hot water out, but also that drain plug as well can force it right in your direction. So what we're going to do is we're going to depressurize it first. In this particular scenario, the easiest way to do that would be coming right over here to the outside shower. We're going to cut the flow of water into the unit. So if we're using a water pump, we're going to turn off the water pump. If we're using a city water connection, we're going to momentarily disconnect that or turn the valve off. Once that inlet of water is cut off, we would then come here, turn the hot side of the spigot on. It's going to blow off any of that excess pressure. Once it stops flowing out of the spray head there, we can come here with 1 1/16 socket and extension and back that drain plug out. Of course, you'll have 5 to 6 gallons of water rushing from that drain plug. No way to really contain it easily, so you'll see a mess here on the ground, but that's pretty standard stuff. Now, you're going to take a moment here to talk about the drain plug specifically. Now, that's not only a drain plug, but it is also your anode rod. Anode rod acts like a magnet for hard water deposits, calcification, things like that. They deposit on the end of that anode rod, eat away at that as opposed to the inside of the water heater. Now, it is a consumable part. Generally, I see people get about a year or two in between changing their anode rods. And when you do change your anode rod, you are going to replace the drain plug as well. So it is sold as one complete assembly. Now on that second recommendation from the manufacturers, of course, if you're following the first recommendation, this is going to be empty when you start your camping trip generally. And we do need to feed or prime the water heater itself with 6 gallons of water. To do that, again, the best and easiest place to do that on this unit is going to be the hot side or the outside shower and the hot side of that. Now in this scenario, we are going to want to first introduce water to the unit. So whether we are, again, going to use that city water connection or that water pump, we would turn that switch on. And once we have water flowing to the unit, we're again just going to take our sprayer and we're going to turn the hot side of the spigot on here. Now that flow is initially going to be very interrupted, very bubbly, airy, however you want to think about it. What's happening behind the scenes is it's actually pumping 6 gallons of water into the water heater before you see it here at the fixture. So once that flow normalizes here at the fixture, that is a very good indicator that you do have 6 gallons of water in here. We can go ahead and light that from the inside. Now I didn't mention it previously, but this is a direct spark igniter water heater, all secondary controlled from the inside. So it is there's no pilot lights, it is just a flip of a switch. Last thing to talk about here on the water heater is going to be, again, protecting it from the intrusion of mud daubers, flying insects, things like that. We're going to do that by covering these ports here, and that just about covers it. So referenced earlier, we have your water sources here. Of course, the one here on the right is your city water connection, your freshwater connection. This is what you're going to use in the capacity of an RV park. And then we have your potable water fill here. That's how we're going to fill that onboard water tank. We would use that if we were doing any off-grid camping or dry camping. Starting off with your potable water here, we're going to stick a drinking water hose directly in there. We're going to fill it up till it overflows. Once we're filled up, we're going to cap it off. Now, nothing to naturally pressurize this system. That's why we do need to use that onboard water pump. Again, that's as easy as a flip of a switch there on the inside. We're going to get eyes on that. That's going to draw that water up from the tank into the fixtures. Now, city water here is pressurized directly from the line. Problem being is that it is often overpressurized for what these units are rated for. So we are going to use a water pressure regulator. And we're going to use a water pressure regulator every single time we take the unit out. So you should never camp without a water pressure regulator. This particular regulator here is going to regulate that pressure in between 40 and 50 psi. Some of our customers like more pressure, and they like to either use an adjustable pressure regulator or a high flow pressure regulator. But biggest thing is you're not going to want to exceed 75 psi pressure going into the unit. So just keep that in mind. Now using this guy here, it's going to be my personal recommendation to go ahead and hook this onto the spigot side of the hose, or excuse me, yes, to the spigot side of the hose, and then we're going to hook the hose onto that, and then we are going to hook this onto the camper. Well, what I'm aiming for here is to keep as much weight off of these trailer connections as possible, and if you do choose to put anything here, give it a right angle so it's not, again, wearing and tearing on those trailer connections here. Now down low, we have your drain for your freshwater holding tank. So this is, of course, how you fill it. This is how you drain it. This is a plug there on that line of PEX. You can generally rotate these by hand, and that will allow that to drain. Here on the backside, nothing too crazy to speak of. We, of course, have your rear stabilizer jacks. We have your spare tire here. Now, if we are going to be changing a spare, easiest way to do that is, of course, you're going to need to use the jack that is equipped with your vehicle. So number one, before needing to change a tire, make sure that that jack is going to work for you. Now when it does come to actually change the tire, we're going to put that jack directly on the axle, as close to the wheel as that we're working on as we can without it interfering into our work. We're then, of course, going to go ahead and take that tire off and put this one on. Tighten up those lug nuts. Couldn't think of a better time for you to again use that lug wrench to make, or that torque wrench, to make sure that those lug nuts are maintaining that 100 foot-pounds. And in that event, when we put this spare on, we need to redo that torque procedure. So once this is on, we're then going to go 10, 25, 50, and 100 miles again, because this is, again, a brand new wheel, and this is going to be the first time that this wheel has made contact with pavement, just like on your way home is the first time that these wheels have made contact with the pavement. So something to think about there. Other than that, here on the backside, not too terribly much. We have your tail lights, marker lights, license plate, things like that, but nothing too exciting here on the backside. Cool Cat air conditioner for us. It is running. Don't be alarmed if you see water coming from this. It is very typical of the appliance. They give you some drain hoses there. Unless you're completely level, it's probably not going to actually come from these hoses, and that's not an issue. It's very standard. That water is going to choose that path of least resistance. So you may see it coming from, in the middle or somewhere else. All right, so you're going to notice that you do have a plug here on each side of the unit, just rear of the tire. Now they do look like solar ports, but these are not. Now this unit comes pre-wired for a lift system for the rooftop. You can go ahead and add that, and it is nice to have the pre-wired option. It would make whoever installed that, hopefully it's us, but whoever would install that would make that a lot easier for them. Couple all-weather 110 volt outlets here. Nothing too crazy there, just some standard 15 amp outlets. Step will be up and in. Again, nothing too exciting there. Door hold back here, so that of course corresponds there with the hook, and if you could get that in there, that's going to go ahead and keep that door from swinging in the wind, keep it holding open. And then we have your cassette toilet here. Now this is a little different than some other cassette toilets that I've seen, where they actually have the water to the toilet plumbed, which is nice. And then we have your actually removable cassette part here. So we're going to lift up, we're going to pull that guy out there, and it's going to close kind of everything up into a fairly clean package when you go ahead and pull that out. Now from there, you of course have this little handle here and some wheels on there. You could wheel this to your dump station. And then when it comes to dumping, you kind of rotate this guy out here. You of course remove the cap, and then you have a little vacuum hole here. So what this is going to do is keep that waste from glugging on the way out. It's going to help that clean it, help dump more cleanly when it does come to do that. Now this does just feed right in there, and you do want to make sure it locks in there. That's going to be your indicator that it is fully inserted and ready for use there. Kind of touch base on further operation of that there on the inside. Outside kitchen area here. Now this would just fold out or pull out. So we would of course unlock this bar latch here. That would allow that to come out. Now once it is out, we have a kind of basic camping style, Dometic style camping stove here. Now you're going to need a long stem barbecue lighter to fire this up. We would go ahead and turn that knob to that light side of it. When we hold this in, that's going to allow that propane to flow to the burner. We'll then take our long stem barbecue lighter and go ahead and put our flame as close to the burner as we can. Once we get fire here, we're going to keep this held in for a few more seconds, allow that thermocoupler enough time to heat up, and then we'll go ahead and choose our flame intensity. Very important that we do give this ample time to cool down before closing this lid. I've seen these crack and need to be replaced if not done properly. Fold out little countertop extender here does lock into place. So it will lock down into place. And what oftentimes happens with these is people forget and they kind of try and muscle it down and break it. So you need to physically come here on the underside, lift up a little bit, and that will allow you to unlock that and fold that down. A little bit of storage here, which is nice. Again, nothing too out of the realm. And then one of these features that I love with these units is going to be this little 12-volt fridge. These things work exceptionally well. And they're super easy to use and very user-friendly. Now this is a 12-volt appliance. The wiring is ran there into the compartment, and it does plug into a 12-volt cigarette lighter style receptacle on the inside of the compartment. Operation is pretty straightforward. You have the temperature that is on that display is going to be the real-time temperature. Now if we want to change that, we're going to go ahead and hit that set button. Once it starts to blink, it's going to show you the set temperature. From there we can go up or down in terms of temperature, and that's it. Now on the other side here, and it may be hard to pick up on camera, but you have your on-off switch here on the back side of the unit. And again, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get eyes on that here, and I think that it's a lost cause. But it is right here. So if you reach your hand down here, you can't help but to feel it. So, and it is visible from the other side of the compartment if you do need to get eyes on it. Of course, when this is, again, not in use, we would then wheel everything up and lock it down. That just about covers it here on the outside. We're going to hop on the inside and start talking about that stuff. All right, here on the inside, we're going to start out by talking about the toilet here. Now, this is a Dometic toilet, cassette toilet. We talked about the dumping side of it there on the outside. Now, right here, you're going to see is your actually flush mechanism. So, this is going to feed water to the bowl. You can hear that water going there into the bowl. And then when it comes to flushing it, we have this handle here, and we just pull that straight forward. That actually dumps that into the cassette receptacle down there on the underside. When not in use, you can go ahead and kind of hide this by folding that down. Gives you kind of a bedside table if you were sleeping there in the top bed. Behind me, while we're here, we'll talk about the light there that's going to light your way if you are coming into the unit. And then we have your fire extinguisher here. Now this is part of your safety equipment. It is very important to test all of your safety equipment every single time you take the unit. For the fire extinguisher itself, there's a little green tab there on the top. We're going to press that guy in, and if he springs back, that means we have some life still left in the unit. If it stays depressed, we need to pull that out of here and replace. Now forward here we have your thermostat. Now this thermostat here is going to control your heat as well as your air conditioner. So you have one thermostat that does it all, and you'll come to it. It'll be in this off position. I'm going to go ahead and hit that one more time. We're going to need to choose a fan speed. So our choices are low, high, and auto. If we chose low or high, that fan's going to run indefinitely, even if it reaches that temperature we set there on the thermostat. So to keep it right with us, we need to hit that auto. Once I go ahead and hit that button again, it's going to kick us right there into that AC mode. We adjust temperature in that setting, or in that mode, by up or down here on the arrows. If I hit it one more time, you're going to see furnace there on the display. Now what that's indicating is that gas burning furnace, that propane burning furnace for the unit. Now once it realizes what I'm doing, that blower motor generally kicks on immediately. 16 seconds after that, it actually ignites. By that 30-second mark, it's producing heat. Within the first 15 minutes of operation, if it does set your smoke alarm off, not something that you do need to be concerned about. They burn kind of inefficient within that first 15 minutes of operation, and often it's like lighting the furnace in your house the first time for the year. So next up on that thermostat, our next option is going to be heat pump. Now this is going to produce heat through the CoolCat air conditioner. What you have there is two heat options. So you have an electric option, or like an RV park option, which is going to be the heat pump, or your off-grid option, which is going to be the propane burning furnace. So you'll figure out which one works for your specific scenario, but they are all accessible there through the thermostat here. We get a couple 15 amp outlets there, nothing too crazy, and storage underneath this bed here. And before we make up that bed, let's talk about not only your blower motor here. That is the propane burning furnace. So all of your heat on that propane side of the thermostat is going to come from this location here. And then we have, beside that, we have your converter and fuse panel and breaker box. Everything here on the right is going to be your automotive blaze style fuses. Those are replaceable, so not a bad idea to pick up a variety pack of fuses, keep them with the unit. And then everything there on the left side is going to be your standard breaker, resettable breaker there, very much of what you have there at your house. And then directly behind that, we have another piece of safety equipment. That's going to be your carbon monoxide LP leak detector. That is wired into the 12-volt section of the camper, so there is no battery to change. Also has a test button on it, very much like a smoke alarm. And it does have lights on there that indicate which gas it is sensing in the event that you have a leak of one of those gases. Now making the bed here, could it be easier? You just have this pull out slide, so you should go ahead and pull these legs out here. And you have this cushion here that drops down and fills it out there. So that is going to be a nice secondary sleeping area. And then it's just as easy as pushing it back in. Now coming around here, we got some other beds to make up and things like that. But this table can be troublesome to some people. Not going to function like a lot of the pedestal tables that you've seen probably before. Now you have a locking collar here. We will go ahead and loosen that locking collar up. And depending on who was in here before, it may be a little too tight. You can kind of turn the tabletop. That does help loosen it up. But once that coupler's loosened up, that will remove there from the flange. And then this part here is just held in there by pressure. And again, dependent on who had it in here before, it may be really wedged in there. So I'm not going to struggle with this on camera, but we'll make sure it's not pounded down in there like it is right now. So we'll go ahead and take that off. But once that tabletop's out of the way, you of course have access to pulling the bed out. You need to remove these cushions momentarily. Go ahead and take them out of the equation. And we then, again, very much like that bed there, you slide this forward and allow these cushions to kind of fall in place. And it looks like I got some more space there. And you just kind of, it's a nice tight fit, but you just wedge this cushion down in. And that's going to go ahead and make that bed there. And then coming back up. Easy if you kind of get the cushions out of the way first. Slide that back. And then something like that. And you do have a bungee cord here if you want to go ahead and lock that down there from moving. Also have storage here on the underside. Nice efficient use of space there. If we come over here to this side of the wall, we have your water heater switch as well as your water pump switch. So water heater switch is first one up. Now it says running and up to temperature, so it's not going to really do much for us. But if you turn this on, it's going to also kick on this red light if it's not already up to temp. That red light is going to be your indicator on whether or not the water heater has lit. So you'll see it kind of turn on and off while it's trying to light. But ultimately what you're looking for is if you come back 5 minutes later and that light's still on, then that means that your water heater has not lit. Oftentimes you may have forgotten to turn the gas bottle on up front, or maybe you're out of propane, something along those lines. Now in the event that that does happen, you're just going to flip that switch off and then turn it back on. It's going to recycle or try and light another 3 times. Generally, as long as you've corrected the issue, it's going to light on the first try of the second cycle. And then we have your water pump switch there. We talked about that. That's how we are going to pressurize that freshwater holding tank in the event that we are doing any off-grid or boondocking. If we're on city water or have full-time access to running water, we do not need to use that water pump. This is only for that kind of off-grid dry camping option. Now we have your sink here. Other than, again, having more storage there, one thing I love about this unit is a ton of storage for the size. Operation of the sink, if we were to slide this down and out, that would be cold water. Up and out is going to be hot water. A little bit of air in the system, nothing to be alarmed about. But biggest thing is before we fold the roof down, faucet needs to be folded down and sink does need to be closed. Now everything that you see in here does need to be below the hinge line before we close it up. So that just about covers it here on, we have your fan above my head. This is your fantastic fan. Trouble with these units is a short guy like me can have a hard time actually reaching them. And I might need Clint to go ahead and do that for me. Once you crank that up, you can choose a direction and then a fan speed here. You can either bring air in or exhaust it. Other things to references we have here is going to be a little fuse holder here. We have a lock here. You have your speed control here. We got 3 speeds. And then up there in the corner is going to be your direction button. Biggest thing with this is we do want to make sure it is closed and locked before going down the road. Now don't worry about really hammering down on this lock tab. As long as you have it engaged, turn it till it stops and that's all you got to do. And then smoke alarm up top. Now that is a 9-volt residential style smoke alarm, so it does have a battery that needs to be changed. And just like at home, it's going to let you know when it needs to be changed. It is part of your safety equipment, so it is going to be my recommendation that you do test your safety equipment every time before taking the unit out. So that's just it here on the inside of the unit in terms of function. Next up is we're going to show you how to close it down and put it back up. So closing everything down is very easy, but there are some very important things to remember. Number one, everything does have to be below the hinge line. That does include cushions. So if it's going to be something that may be close, you can go ahead and just push those down anyway, just to be sure. You're going to go around. You're going to turn all the lights off. Now you're going to, again, give those kind of cool time, or enough time to cool down, because some of them may be pretty close to some of these cushions and things like that, and we don't want those to get burned. Now, first thing we're going to do on the inside is we're going to put the dormers down. To do that, it's going to be the same for each dormer. You'll have latches on each of the sidewalls, and it goes without saying that there is nothing on any of these interior walls to keep them open once you unlatch them. So they are free floating, especially with these bigger walls. If you unlatch them and you forget, that wall may come down and bonk you on the head there. So these walls come down, and you can go ahead and they have a conveniently placed handle there. And you draw that down. Now, if it pops back up, don't worry about it. It's on gas struts. We're going to actually finish closing those up there on the outside. So I'm going to do the same thing up here. Oh, we got a window open. We're going to go ahead and close that. Then I'm going to open that guy. Do the same. Close that light off. And then we're going to hop out here on the outside just momentarily and go ahead and latch those dormers down. So you do want to latch the dormers down before you fully put the sidewalls down. So these latches here, they're adjustable, but they're at their longest throw when they're fully open. And you may have to kind of compress those seals a little bit, but that's fine. And then you lock that down there. We're going to do the same thing here. And then we're going to come around here to the back of the unit and do the same thing there. Again, compress those seals. And you'll run into this sometime. Now, if these aren't completely in line, you may hit that locking tab there, but that's okay. We can just loosen it, move it over a little bit. And you may have to do that a couple times, but no harm, no foul. And then there we go. So then we're going to hop back in on the inside, and we're going to start with the sidewalls. Now, very important. This wall, the passenger side, or excuse me, the driver's side wall always comes down first. It's very important. It only closes up one way, so you need to remember that this always comes down first. Now, once I put this wall down, I'm not going to be able to reach this latch on the other side. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to undo both latches at the same time. Of course, before doing this, make sure that the front ones are in fact engaged, or that wall is going to come down and bonk you in the head. Now we're going to finish up putting this wall down. So I already did the back one, and now I'm going to do this one. That one goes down first. Rest here on the cabinet, so you have a little bumper there, so it's not going to hurt anything. And then again, since I already did this, the rear latch here, we're going to do the front one here. And also, I need to also do the door here. Now, this is one of those things that is very important to do correctly, or you may damage it. So you need to, before you put this wall down, you do need to separate these doors here. Also, not going to really damage anything, but I do need to hold this kind of in a halfway position there to allow that enough space to clear the aluminum lip there. So if it's me putting one of these back by myself, I'll kind of, separate the roof panels here on the inside. Now, if you have a friend with you, you guys can do it from the outside. Ultimately, you're going to end up on the outside anyway, so it kind of makes sense to do it that way. But hard to do by yourself. So if you have a friend, you can both get a handle here on the outside and just push this panel upwards, and that's what we're aiming to do. So me by myself, I go ahead and push it here, and we're just pushing it enough so that it comes out of that indentation up there at the top, and we did that. So once you pop that roof panel loose, you're going to finish up here on the outside. Both of these doors need to be closed, so you want to go ahead and close this, but you're making sure that there's nothing really to keep this from flopping in the wind, so you want to make sure you're not pinching it just because you don't want to tear it or anything. And then both doors need to be closed here. The aluminum sidebars there, they come down over top of this. And then again, because I'm a fairly short guy, I start all the way here at the rear of the unit, and then I kind of just walk my way forward and close it at the same time. Now once I can get a hand on here, because at a certain point if you were to keep pulling this roof panel, it's not going to close anymore, it's essentially just going to separate from the top. So I grab here and I just kind of take it home here and close it fully. Lay the latch down flat, because again, like we talked about earlier, that is the longest part of that. Let's see here. Might need to adjust this latch slightly. There you go, just a little stiff. And then we're going to do the same thing here on this side. And that's how you close it down effectively. Now we're going to put it up, and we're going to use this high wind kit. This has the cable high wind kit there. Does still need to be, and they can't spell it out enough with this sticker. You do need to be very careful, even with the high wind kit, when putting this up in high winds. And I'll kind of talk about your most vulnerable point as we go through it. So what you're going to do is you're going to unlatch it, and then we're going to come here onto the other side and unlatch it as well. Now we can kind of, I guess we could start off with the high wind kit here. Now this is, basically this locks the two roof panels together, but you can also use this as kind of a handle. Now the solid bars kind of work better for that, but the wire option would work as well. And of course we saw this on the other side, so the person helping you put this up would have one in their hand as well. So lifting up here, we would, in theory, you're going to want to keep kind of like a firm hold on this. And this is where you're kind of entering into that vulnerable point here. Now, if we had a strong backwind here, it's going to come from the rear and it's going to hit this wall dead on. So that's kind of what this is for. And of course, in the event that that would happen, if that is a strong enough wind, you sitting here holding this wire isn't going to really do much, because it's just going to pull it out of your hand. So it helps, but it's not a end-all be-all fix for putting it up in high wind. And then once we are vulnerable essentially until we lock that in. And because this is a larger one, we're going to have to lock in both sides separately. So that's what I'm going to come over here and do. And then once we get those wall panels locked in, we're going to then, or excuse me, those roof panels, once we get those locked in, we're going to then finish engaging this high wind kit by locking the two roof panels together. We're going to put that loop on there, and then again tighten that down. Of course, this is adjustable. If you ask me, that's probably a little loose. We'll go ahead and make sure that's a little bit more taut for you. From there, you just go ahead and put this in and lock it. Of course, you're going to do the very same thing there on the other side to go ahead and lock those panels together. Now, we're going to hop there on the inside and put the roof, the sidewalls up. And from there, we're going to lift up. And again, we're making sure that that door is going to clear that frame. And I'm going to put this latch in. Now these latches here, it's kind of a tip is, you see if I just kind of try and do that lightly, it doesn't work too well. Now there's gaskets here on the other side. We're going to need to compress those gaskets. I found that the easiest way to do that is to use your palm to kind of push that latch into where it needs to be. You can take this time and go ahead and lock the two doors together, although it's not a must, but you're here, so why not do it? So we're going to go ahead and lock those two doors together, and then we're going to put up this side. And again, I'm going to use that meat of my hand there to set that latch, and then I'm going to do the same here on the rear. So that's the sidewalls, definitely usable in this capacity if you're inclined to do so. But we're going to go ahead and finish up by putting the dormers out. And we're going to first unlatch them from the outside. Walk around here to the rear and do the same. And then we're going to hop back on the inside. And you just kind of help that wall extend fully. And then put the sidewalls up. Latch them in. And then we're going to come to the front and do the very same thing up there. And there you go. That just about covers the Aliner Family Edition. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Thank you so much for your business. Take care.